Hello Etheria Restart newbies, this is Suspect Amy, and I'm here to do a quick video sharing what I do to greatly simplify farming until you get to late game. If you're new to this channel, I make videos for more casual players and usually share tips and tricks to help them progress their accounts the fastest with minimal effort. This is just my humble opinion, but I think there's an optimal way to farm gear and shells until late game that no one seems to be talking about. To begin with, what do I mean by mid-game and late game? I think mid-game starts when you have a few heroes completely on mythic shells and modules, and you're actively farming to upgrade the rest of your units. Late game is when you have a few heroes on triple matrix shells, and completed their 6, 8, 12 module sets, and, again, you're actively farming to upgrade the rest of your units. This video is for early to mid-game players who haven't quite reached late game yet. I would put myself in this bucket. I see content creators covering how good specific shells are, and saying you need to have 3 or 4 of X shell and 1 or 2 of Y shell. This makes zero sense because if you're talking about 3 matrix shells, there are 56 different combinations of every shell. So it would be incredibly difficult to level up one shell and have it benefit your account long term. Content creators will also tell you about the optimal matrices and shells you should be farming for every hero. This is really helpful for late game accounts, but I see new or casual players spending way too much effort trying to farm these optimal sets when it's incredibly inefficient. No wonder a lot of players are getting burnt out. Why is this inefficient? In early game, you really didn't care much what stats your purple and yellow equipment had. As long as it has the right main stat or shell skill, you leveled it up. These were cheap and made to be thrown away. This isn't the case once you hit mid-game. Mythic shells and modules are incredibly expensive to upgrade, and you will often keep these on your account long-term for future heroes. Because of this, you really need to start being pickier about main stats, substats, and matrices. This pickiness means that 95% of the modules and shells that you farm will be trash. Let me give you an example. Let's take Gray here. According to most guides, you should farm Hoyan for the Jackal Guard shell, then farm Terrormaton for Keen-Eye gear, then farm Aurora for Fury gear. Let's cover how hard it is to farm specific sets like this. Just so we're all on the same page, I'm assuming everyone farms the same way. You log in, max your stamina, and start a farm. Throughout the day, you check on the game and restart your farm when possible. You should ideally be doing this every day. Even if you're a casual player, it actually doesn't take much effort. Now let's start with farming Hoyan. First, you need to pray that your farming run drops a mythic shell and not a low rarity one. Then you pray that the mythic shell is Jackal Guard. Then you need to pray that the shell has the right kind of matrices you want. And lastly, you need to pray that you get the right number of matrices. There is a crazy amount of praying going on here. You will likely need to farm Hoyan basically all day long for a realistic chance to get the shell you're looking for, along with the resources you need to upgrade it. And shells are the easy part. Now let's look at modules. First, you want the gear slot you're looking for, then you want that piece to have the right matrix, then you are praying it has a high number of matrices, then you're hoping it has a high number of substats. Then you're praying it has the right kind of substats. Then you are hoping the substats start with high rolls. And last but not least, if it's a right side piece, it absolutely needs to have the right main stat you're looking for. If all of these things line up, you will have one perfect piece of gear. You usually need to farm modules for several days to get one of these. So when someone tells you that you need to farm 3 different things like this to equip a single character, you should expect a week's worth of farming to make this happen. Let's say you do this. You spend a week on the different farms and you ignore a bunch of the prayers I mentioned, so you don't have perfect gear, but you have a really decently geared Gray now. Who else can use this gear? We all know this set is completely worthless on any tank, healer, support, or debuffing hero. But let's say you get Messiah on a lucky summon. Can he use this set? Well, sort of. According to the web, he works best with the White Fang shell along with Momentum and Harvest. So you spent a week farming a set of gear that's specifically tailored to a small pool of heroes. There are way too many matrices in this game. 21 to be exact. A game like Epic 7 has been adding new sets for 7 years, and they have, 16 now? 21 sets mean that most of the stuff that you farm will not be very useful for your other heroes. You can see where optimizing your farm will go a very long way, especially in early and mid-game. Now here's my opinion on how you should be farming in Etheria Restart so you don't drive yourself crazy. Early and mid-game, you should be farming just one thing and nothing else, and that's Nico-Doki. I mean, obviously you should farm what you need to complete the hyperlink charter, which is a key source of growth materials, but outside of this it should be Nico-Doki, and only Nico-Doki. The primary reason is Doki Doki drops Swift Rush, and Swift Rush is the one matrix that works extremely well on every single unit in the game. Healers, strikers, tanks, debuffers, supporters, it doesn't matter what hero you have, they will benefit from the 35% speed boost from Swift Rush. That makes any Swift Rush gear pieces you max out infinitely reusable on your account for any new heroes you decide to build in the future. You might be saying, but Amy, what about my Grey and Messiah? Won't they suck on Swift Rush? Actually, they won't. You can focus your Swift Rush pieces on damage stats, pair them with high damage shells and matrices, and you will have hard-hitting strikers who take turns much faster. Will they be perfect? No. I think Swift Rush builds will get you 80% of the way toward max striker damage potential, but if you want to get to 100%, you'll need to do the inefficient matrix-specific farming we talked about earlier. While this is true for strikers, that's less true for other heroes. Other than health-scaling characters, Doki Doki sets may actually be best in class for a lot of healers, tanks, supports, and debuffers. What else does Doki Doki give you? Harvest gives you an attack boost as well as some defense penetration, and Time Weave lowers cooldowns and gives you effect accuracy. Last but not least, Doki Doki also drops the best defense matrices in the game. I'll come back around to this later. So why do you want to farm Nico Nana for your shells over all of the other mythic farms? Well, for one, there are only 2 striker shells in the game that can obtain the Swift Rush matrix, so Hoyan and Rengo are instantly not compatible with Doki Doki. Like I said, every hero you build should have Swift Rush maxed out, plus a complementary matrix and shell. By mid-game, your account should look a lot like this: Swift Rush Bramble, Swift Rush Unbreakable, Swift Rush Harvest, Swift Rush Harvest again, Swift Rush Time Weave, Swift Rush Bramble, Swift Rush Time Weave. You get the picture. Because of this, you can only consider shells that have Swift Rush, and every shell in Nico Nana and Sharon supports Swift Rush. So why Nico Nana and not Sharon? There are 3 main reasons. First, Nico Nana is arguably way easier to farm, which means you'll probably have faster runs with a higher success rate. Second, remember what I said about Doki Doki being the queen of defense matrices? Nico Nana has the best defense scaling shell in the game. Artisan is an amazing shell that boosts defense and then gives shields to the user and the lowest health ally. On someone like Linglo, whose healing doesn't scale based on her own health, Nico-Doki is best in class for her. You can go crazy bulking her up with defense, give her Bramble for some counterattack healing, and Artisan for the massive shields. This kind of setup allows you to essentially skip leveling up any of her skills and she'll still be your best healer. The third reason Nico Nana is better than Sharon is because of the differences in their striker shells. The Doki matrices on Nico Nana's striker shell are Swift Rush and Harvest. On Sharon's, these are Swift Rush and Bramble. Harvest boosts attack while Bramble boosts defense. Nico's shell also has the second highest attack among all striker shells in the game, while Sharon's shell has the second lowest attack. I think this makes it pretty clear that Nico Nana's striker shell hits much harder and is usable by more strikers compared to Sharon's, which seems very situational. What about Nico Nana's other shells? The last 2 shells are incredibly universal and can be used on any hero you own. One removes 2 debuffs, and one speeds up your turn meter. These shells can be used on literally anyone, and they'll be super useful. These are the reasons why I personally think that hardcore Nico-Doki farming is the fastest way to get an account with a large pool of heroes operating at very high potential. Once you hit late game, you can start focusing on farming very specific matrices and shells tailored for each hero, but until then, it's Nico-Doki all the way. Anyways, I hope that I've helped some newer players narrow down what they should focus their farm on so they can relax a bit, not feel overwhelmed, and progress to late game faster. That's all I have today. Thanks for watching my video. Bye everyone.